Welcome to Yankee Stadium.
Tonight, a live episode of The Frieze. A former Yankees pitcher is going to prison for an unthinkable crime. Next, Carlos Correa has hired Scott Boras. Does that provide any behind-the-scenes clues on his free agency? Next, I'll catch up with the audience for a live session. We'll do the 2022 Jameson Taillon preview, and we'll close out with top 10 tips for YouTube success and an in-depth tour of my home podcast studio. I'm Derek, we're live, and this is The Frieze. We have to start off with some horrifying news. Some of you remember this guy, Sergio Mitre, former MLB pitcher, former Yankee, is going to be facing 40 to 60 years in prison for the rape and murder of his 22-month-old stepdaughter. I'm just going to leave that in. I'm even more mortified now. Mitre pitched for 4 teams in the majors from 2003 through 2011. Talk about having a gift and throwing your life away and causing destruction in your path. Absolutely horrific. Carlos Correa has made the decision to switch agents to Scott Boras. Really, that means he's going for top dollar, but I don't think you can read too much else into it. He's the best shortstop available, and he wants to get the biggest deal possible. That's all there is to it. Boras is known for taking his time with clients. Remember Bryce Harper a few years ago. So I wouldn't expect Correa to sign quickly after the lockout. It's going to take some time, and I know that the Yankees want to wrap up the shortstop question as quickly as possible, so this may lead to the Yankees going in another direction. Trevor Story is still out there, and if he's willing to take a 1-year prove-it deal, I think he's a Yankee. Otherwise, I suspect the Yankees will improve in other areas and go with a stopgap, defense-oriented solution to begin the season. Somebody like Isaiah Kiner-Falefa from Texas, who just got displaced by Corey Seager, but who is great defensively. Or they could go with Andrelton Simmons and hope that Oswald Peraza can take over by mid-season. That's if Peraza isn't traded. There's a lot of balls up in the air right now, especially with the lockout making things even more complicated. But when everything falls into place, I don't expect Carlos Correa to be in the Bronx. How ticked off would you be if you were his former agent? If the agent gets a 10% cut, and Correa would have signed just before the lockout, the agent would have probably gotten maybe $30 or more million. Some people have said that the Yankees don't negotiate with Scott Boras, but that's simply not true. Garrett Cole is represented by Scott Boras, and Alex Rodriguez was represented by Scott Boras for a while. I still don't think Correa is coming to the Yankees, but it won't have anything to do with the Yankees not wanting to talk to Scott Boras. That's a fiction. I'm anxious to get your reactions. Let's get started.
Welcome to Yankee Stadium.
The stuff that dreams are made of.
That was not A-Rod with Scott Boras, by the way, in that last picture. That was Yankees legend Jacoby D. Ellsbury. That's right, Jacoby D. Ellsbury. Who remembers Ellsbury? How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to NYY Recaps. Thank you for taking a break from binging Season 4 of Ozark to join me for a live edition of The Frieze. The Frieze is the official podcast of NYY Recaps, which is available on all podcast platforms. Hopefully it'll be up tomorrow. It takes a little bit of time to get it uploaded after I finish the live show. I want to get your thoughts on everything baseball related in just a second, but I haven't been live in almost 2 months, so I wanted to give a quick hello. Forgive me if I'm a little bit rusty tonight. That's crazy about Sergio Mitre. I remember that guy well. There truly may not be a punishment that can fit the crime there. There truly may not be. 42-60 years is likely a life sentence, but given his particular crime, there's a likelihood that his fellow inmates will shorten that sentence for him rather quickly. Okay, so first, some baseball and Yankees updates. The Yankees hired Rachel Baklavec, I think that's how you say it, to be the first female manager of an MLB-affiliated team. Let's hear it for Rachel. Get that applause going for Rachel. The Yankees have 3 players in the Baseball America Top 100 prospect rankings. 20-year-old shortstop Anthony Volpe, the Yankees' number 1 overall prospect, is the highest ranking of the bunch at number 10. Oswald Peraza is ranked number 55, and Jason Dominguez is ranked number 87. A lot of people are making a fuss about Dominguez kind of, I guess, slipping a little bit in the rankings after last season. But keep in mind, he was just 18 years old. He was playing his first pro season at a time when most major league draft picks are seniors in high school or freshmen in college. And he was playing as a pro, having not played in a year. Also, the Yankees have been previously linked to Seiya Suzuki, the Japanese standout outfielder, before the lockout. But depending on how long the lockout goes, he may end up back in Japan. If the lockout extends into the season, and somehow the MLB season begins after the Nippon teams need to assemble their roster, I can't see his team just letting him sit out. He'll be pulled back and maybe posted again next season or become a free agent. I'm not sure what his status is. But alas, we are at the mercy of the collective bargaining agreements. We have some broadcast news. Michael Kay and A-Rod are doing a mega cast together for Sunday Night Baseball. Michael says there won't be any of the, there it goes, see ya. I'll believe that when I see it. Word to you, Michael Kay. Love you, buddy. And unfiltered A-Rod should be interesting. I've seen him have a lot of casual conversations over the years, and he's pretty funny when he's off the cuff, but he knows a lot about baseball, obviously, so he's a good mind to have on if you're trying to grow the game. But hopefully you don't just talk about baseball. I want to know A-Rod's opinions on the big topics like simulation theory. We saw John Boy move into a new Manhattan office, and they gave the audiences a tour. I want to give kudos to them. Going from YouTube to Manhattan is quite the jump, and, he's just done a spectacular job. I personally hope to never leave this room, so I decided to film a more in-depth home podcast studio tour that I'm going to drop later in this video. And by the way, any of the segments from tonight's episode that you miss will be uploaded individually at 10 p.m. tonight. And now just a few personal updates. People keep asking me what I'm up to, why I'm not doing more live streams. I actually have been doing a lot of behind-the-scenes work and preparing for this season. You can see the slightly upgraded live stream format. I've switched from a square frame to a widescreen frame. I know that's not a huge deal, but you get more of a background now. I increased the size of the highlights in the upper right-hand corner. During the season, Yankees game night's going to have pretty much the same look. It's going to look very similar, but it should be a ton of fun. And I promise that we're going to try and have highlights for every single game. I hired somebody to do highlights for me, so every time we have a Yankees game night, I'm going to try and have highlights. I know we missed a few times last year. I'm really excited about getting back into it. It's going to be so off the hook. I switched to a mostly plant-based diet on New Year's. I've lost about 8 pounds so far in the first 3 weeks. I've been doing this thing where I fast for 19 hours, and then I line up fruits and vegetables kind of like a hot dog eating contest. And then I just I murder them like I just down them all at once. But while I'm doing that, I have a 5-minute time limit because I'm cooking a plain potato while I'm eating. And then when the buzzer goes off for the plain potato, I eat the potato and then I'm done. And then I don't eat for 19 hours. And I tell you what, I feel great. My mind has been sharp, dropping weight. I also ordered a Tonal, which is like a smart workout system. Should be installed next week. Hopefully I'll had plenty of time to use it by the time the season starts. So I should be looking like Ivan Drago at that point. I've watched 6 movies so far in 2022. The Unforgivable with Sandra Bullock on Netflix. Terrific, suspenseful movie. She is amazing and still gorgeous after all these years. I watched Ghostbusters Afterlife, which was entertaining and I would have loved it when I was a kid, but it was not really for me as an adult. I don't love this new trend of technology that's allowing deep fakes for dead actors. When I'm dead, I'm done working. I'm finished. Don't put me in any movies. Don't put me in any YouTube videos. When I'm dead, that's it. Don't steal my essence. I watched Director's Cut, which was a crowd-funded horror comedy by Penn Jillette. I kind of liked it a little bit, but it's not going to be for everybody. I also read his book, Presto, which I greatly enjoyed. Every year I pick a different person or two and study their life and study their oeuvre, their catalog of work. Like last year it was Tupac and Biggie. This year, so far, it's Penn Jillette, and I haven't decided who I'm going to do after that. I watched The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo on the recommendation of a couple of my friends. Thought it was terrific. Word to Tom. I've been really into suspense movies lately. I saw the Ray Donovan movie on Showtime. Thought it was dog shit. Sorry for anybody from Showtime who's watching that. It was terrible. And finally, I saw the new Scream movie, and I left the theater unimpressed, but I watched some videos for some other horror content creators that talked about some Easter eggs that I might have missed, and I think I might give it a second chance. That's about all that's going on with me. There's not much going on with baseball right now. I'm going to grab a sip of water, and then we're going to get to your comments. All right, so Hirsch, for real, says, Hal won't pony up for Correa. I kind of agree with you there. I just don't think that they want to spend $350 million for a shortstop when you've got a couple of really good shortstops in the system already, even if a couple of them are years away. I just like the idea of a homegrown shortstop. You're young, you get the best years of them. I'm just worried you're going to sign Correa and he's going to decline in a couple of years. And he's going to have to move off a shortstop. It's a lot of money on your payroll. You're going to have to re-sign Judge. I just don't love it. Oh, Edwin NG says Spider-Man was cool. I actually also saw the Spider-Man movie, so I should add that to my list. I started a spreadsheet that I'm listing all the movies that I watched, so I got to add that one. I thought Spider-Man was great. Let's see here. Rich Rucci says, Big Papi getting into the Hall of Fame on the first ballot is horse crap. I'm going to have to go ahead and agree.
Yes, I agree.
He definitely used steroids, and it's unfair that Alex and Roger and Barry and stuff, they get held to account, but for some reason David Ortiz doesn't. I'm just not in agreement with that. Mateo Morano says, I just want baseball back.
I wholeheartedly agree.
Me too. Jaden Pagan says, Correa is Puerto Rican. Puerto Ricans don't get old and never wear off. Bernie was Puerto Rican, I think, right? And Bernie had some great longevity. Yeah, I mean, maybe. I don't know. I can't tell you what nationality different players are because I don't really think about that. I just care about, what they're doing on the field. But, for folks that are from Puerto Rico, you see a lot of pride from the Dominican. The Yankees have a lot of Dominican prospects. People love to rep their country. That's why I personally love the World Baseball Classic. I just wish they would have it during the middle of the baseball season, the American baseball season. Push the All-Star break out. Maybe take like 10 days off for the All-Star break and have the World Baseball Classic. Right? I think that would be great. Hockey breaks for the Olympics. It makes a lot of sense to me to break and show it off to the world. If you really want to grow the game, CJ Cable says, especially the guys that never failed the test and it's all just rumors. Yeah, I want to say for Clemens, maybe? I don't think Clemens ever failed the test. He denied it forever, but all the behind the scenes stuff with Brian McNamee, they all said that he did it. And there were a lot of people that said he did it. Hi12397 says MLB will resume on Flag Day. I know where you're getting that from. That came from, I want to say Buster Olney had a source that was an agent, and then he repeated it on the Michael Kay show. I don't think baseball wants to miss 2 months of games. I really don't. Not 2 years after you missed pretty much 100 games. you don't want to miss 2 months again. You don't want to anger fans right now. Consumers will turn on you. It's just, it's a bad look for baseball. And I'm not going to take sides. I think that, they just need to figure out something that works for everybody. I get it. The players want to get paid, but the average salary is 100 times more than any working class person will make in their life. And the owners, they're all billionaires. So I'm pissed at both sides, honestly. Even though this was 100% the owners that caused the lockout, I feel like if you're a professional athlete, I would play for free. And I know that's the way a lot of fans feel. And I know that's not a very nuanced position, but maybe I'm just bitter because I want to watch baseball. Let's see here. Got some more comments. Michael Mazza says, is there a way the Yankees can trade for Olsen and Reynolds? I mean, you would really have to empty out the farm. I mean, you'd be saying goodbye to Jason Dominguez. You'd be saying goodbye to Volpe. I think Brian Reynolds, as 161 mentioned, Jason Surge mentioned on my show, or maybe on his show, I don't remember anymore, a couple of weeks ago, that Brian Reynolds is probably the only guy that you trade Jason Dominguez for. There was a great article from Brian Hoke, I want to say maybe 10 days ago, about how Jason Dominguez was an anomaly. His stats don't jump off the screen at you, but he did so many good things behind the scenes. He's apparently a really hard worker, somebody who's, working really hard to learn English so he can be a better teammate. We know about the exit velocity, but, he's got a lot of metrics behind the team that they don't tell us about that apparently he's like off the charts, and they're calling him an anomaly. And that's why I wear this Martian hat. CJ says, Reynolds will cost Jason. 100% agree on that one. CJ also says Olsen cost Peraza, most likely. 100% agree with you on that, too. Let's see here. THG says Rob Manfred and Gary Bettman are the two worst professional sports commissioners out there by far. I don't really know much about Gary Bettman, but I do know that Rob Manfred hasn't done a lot of great for the game. I do think that when there is a CBA ultimately agreed upon, there's going to be a lot of positives for the game. I mean, we're probably going to see the full-time DH, both the American League and the National League. We'll probably get some kind of a lottery system so that there's no tanking anymore. We might get, 7-inning double headers to stay. I actually like that rule a little bit. I think it saves your pitching staff a little bit. You don't need guys tearing up their arms. And, 8 hours of baseball is a lot. It's a lot. And in between games, sometimes you have some time, 10 hours maybe. I mean, that's a long day. It's a long day. Anushk says, let's forget the offseason. Who's your favorite underrated Yankee? If you're talking all time, I think probably Ramiro Mendoza or maybe Alfredo Aceves. I'm partial because I love pitching. I just think it's such a fine art. And Mendoza was a guy who would come in the middle of the game and throw sinkers and have efficient innings. He had a great nickname, and I want to say I think it was El Brujo, the witch doctor. That might be wrong. Somebody can correct me on that. And Alfredo Aceves was the same thing, a guy who came in the middle of the game and provided really strong relief for 3 or 4 innings and got a lot of what's called vulture wins, where he got credited with the win because the team scored some runs after he came in and he was able to hold the other team down. Futai says, what do you think about Roderick Arias? I love his swing. I don't love how much he's pimping home runs at age 16. But I mean, he's 16. He's 9 years away from his frontal cortex being fully developed in his brain. So I always say, and I've got to stick with it or else I'd be hypocritical, I don't judge anyone for being immature before they're 25. You know what I mean? For acting in a way that I find cringy because your brain's not fully developed. Let's see here. Hirsch says Cashman won't trade Dominguez. They really love him. I agree. And I think that's why we're not getting Brian Reynolds.
I wholeheartedly agree.
THC says the runner on second must goal. I think he means must go. There we go. Yeah, the runner on second extra inning rule is a catastrophe for baseball. It's offensive to people who love the game. And I just, it has to go. I think it's going away. Mateo Morano says, do you think that the Yankees could trade for Olsen and Chapman, or do you think that would be asking too much? I think the A's could probably get more for them in separate deals. Now, that's not saying that the Yankees couldn't trade for both of them. And if you're planning on playing Chapman at third, then I love it. I don't want him for shortstop. I want an actual shortstop. But I think you could get him only for this reason. And sorry, I keep hitting the microphone. Told you guys I'd be a little bit rusty. The A's are going to have a very short amount of time to unload all that money that they need to unload, right? They could make multiple deals, and maybe they're chatting behind the scenes, and when lockout ends, maybe you'll see boom, 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 deal after deal. That could happen. But it could also be that, you know, they want to move as much as possible right away in one deal. And it wouldn't be out of the question for the Yankees to say, look, we'll take all of these salaries. We'll take the entire salary, and we'll give you a couple of prospects, and we'll give you back some major league caliber players and pay that salary too. Because they didn't go over the luxury tax last year, so they can spend as much as they want this year. So you can trade a couple of prospects, but also throw in a Luke Voit, who could legitimately DH for them and put up some really good numbers if he stays healthy. He could hit 30, 40 home runs if he's healthy. I don't think anybody doubts that. You could send them Gleyber Torres. He's not making a lot of money, but he's, $4 or $5 million. Gio Urshela, same thing. You can give them some recognizable major league talent, so they would still put some fans in the seats. Maybe some West Coast Yankee fans want to take their kids to go see some ex-Yankees play. That's a possibility. I don't think it's going to happen, but I would love a massive blockbuster deal. A massive, where you send 3 or 4 guys from the Yankees, you get 3 or 4 back from the A's, take on a lot of money. It's not my money. Planter says, you consider pimping home runs to be immature? Not necessarily, but if you watch the way that Arias pimps his home runs, the guy stood there. You could have made pancakes while he was watching his home run on some of these highlights. You really could have made... It was unbelievable how long he stood and watched these home runs. Let's see here. 25 Perez says, what's up, everyone? How's it going? Welcome to everybody who is just joining. Pretty soon, I'm going to get to... I want to spend some more time in the chat because I haven't done this in a while, and it's a ton of fun. But I've got some other segments coming up. Jameson Taillon 2022 preview. It's a little shorter than my other previews. It's about 2.5 minutes. But, he's a solid pitcher. And then I got 10 tips for YouTube success. That's going to play right after the Jameson Taillon piece. That's about 11 minutes. And then that'll finish up with a 4-minute podcast tour of this room, of all the changes that I've made, and it's a ton of fun. Hirsch says, if the Yankees don't extend Judge, do you trade him or let him play out the season and run the risk of him just walking and signing elsewhere? I was actually faced with this dilemma in my MLB The Show franchise, and I paid for it. I let him go to free agency, and he signed with the Angels. I would hate if that happened in real life, but it's what happened. Sometimes life imitates art. CJ says Volpe is his only untouchable prospect. Anush says, I'd be fine if our flashiest move was a long-term Judge extension. I disagree.
Just a bit outside.
I want the Yankees to win while they have Garrett Cole and while they have Giancarlo Stanton swinging the bat well, and while they have Aaron Judge, and while they have a pretty lockdown bullpen. I want the Yankees to win now. And that means they got to add. They've got to add to the team. Futai says, would you mind Sevy to the bullpen next year? I wouldn't mind it. In fact, I think it would be a good move, but not for the whole season. I think you want him as a starting pitcher, but because he hasn't thrown in the last couple of years, I think maybe you start him in the bullpen. I mean, it depends on who they sign, what the rotation looks like. We have no idea what anything is going to look like right now. But I wouldn't be opposed to starting him in the bullpen for like April, maybe up until like maybe Memorial Day. Maybe let him throw 130 innings next year instead of 150, 160. Let him have some time to ease into the season and avoid some of that cold weather. Jaden says, Derek's made a good argument for Everson Pereira, but I think he's on the chopping block. I agree. They potentially were going to move him for the guy you're seeing on his screen right now, Joey Gallo. He was originally part of that deal, and it didn't happen. So, I mean, there's a possibility that he gets traded. I'm really high on Everson Pereira. I've been watching a lot of highlights of him. He's just got lightning in his swing. I mean, the guy, he swings a big bat, and he gets that barrel through the zone fast, and the ball jumps off of his bat. I mean, he had some enormous numbers last year. I'm not looking at him in front of me. If somebody wants to pull him up, I will. I'll put it on the screen. Jaden says, trade Chapman Green. So I wouldn't be opposed to trading Aroldis Chapman, and I've spoken in the past about how now would probably be an okay time to trade Chad Green, but they haven't added enough at this point. I think you can only move those guys if you add in other areas, because the Yankees don't have a good setup man for, you have Clay Holmes who bounced back a little bit with the Yankees, and you have Michael King, who looked good, but I see him as more of a middle reliever to eat up innings because he gets out so efficiently. Zach Britton's out next year, and I guess you have Loizaga as like your 7th inning guy, but you don't really have another 8th inning guy other than Chad Green, unless you flip-flop those guys and then you're looking for a 7th inning guy, and you go with Loizaga in the 8th. And if you trade Chapman, then you got to fill the 7th and 8th innings. So it's a tough move to move both of those guys at once. A couple more questions. The chat's pretty quiet tonight. It's off season. We've only got about 82 people on here. Usually it's about 300 or 400. Futai says, do you think the Yankees payroll will go down next year? Well, Brian Cashman said he had latitude to make it go up. So I'll believe that when I see it. THG says Everson Pereira, 303, 20 home runs, 57 RBI, 1084 OPS. And I think that's in a small amount of games. I think he only played 50 or 60 games. Hurst says, are you high on Luis Gil and Luis Medina? I'm higher on Luis Gil than I am on Luis Medina. I think Luis Medina has a better arm. I think Luis Gil has better mechanics. Luis Medina has a better arm. Luis Gil has better mechanics. Medina pitches across his body a little bit, which can be tough on your arm, and the Yankees don't like it when guys do that. Davy Garcia threw across his body, and last year they adjusted him to not throw across his body, and he was terrible. And I feel like they're going to make that adjustment with Luis Medina at some point. His arm is so good, though, that I'd be hesitant to mess with him too much. But Luis Gil, we saw him have success at the major league level right away. Right away. So, I mean, that's hard to say no. I mean, it's hard to not like that. 99-mile-an-hour fastball, it's hard not to like that. All right, guys, so I appreciate everybody who has joined the chat. Let's get to the Jameson Taillon 22 preview, and then I got 10 tips for YouTube success. That's about 11 minutes long, and then in-depth podcast studio tour. I will be here in the comments chatting with you guys, but I will not be on screen live again for the rest of this chat. But one last time for Anushk, the real deal, Luis Gil. All right, guys, Jameson Taillon. Jameson Taillon might not be the most exciting pitcher on the staff, but he was very reliable in 2021. After throwing just 37 1/3 innings in 2019 with Pittsburgh, he didn't pitch at all in 2020. So color me surprised that he was actually able to make 29 starts in 2021. He pitched 144 1/3 innings. He had a respectable but not great ERA of 4.30. His ERA plus, which is adjusted for the players' ballparks, is exactly league average, 100. He was absolutely demolished by the Philadelphia Phillies on June 12th, allowing 5 hits and 4 earned runs. and getting precisely 1 out before hitting the showers. At that point, he was 1-4 with an ERA over 5. After some tweaks to his pitch selection and repertoire with Matt Blake, he went on a run. Over his next 12 starts, he was 7-0 with a 2.57 ERA and really gave the Yankees a great chance to win nearly every time out. They were 10-2 over those 12 starts. He faded a bit down the stretch and had some trouble with his ankle in the final weeks of the season, causing him to have off-season surgery. The metrics on Jameson Taillon were okay. His fastball spin and curveball spin are both bordering on elite. His chase rate and his average fastball velocity aren't bad, and his control is pretty good. The traditional stats don't always line up with the metrics, but in Taillon's case, they kind of do. He's about league average as a pitcher, which is still pretty good. The question is, how will he do this season? On one hand, he's had a bit more time to learn from Matt Blake and to learn from his longtime friend Garrett Cole, now a teammate. On the other hand, the ankle injury may have hindered how much he was actually able to practice off of a pitcher's mound this winter. Because of the lockout, he said that he's unable to work with the Yankees training staff, which might actually be a good thing. I wouldn't expect him back at the very beginning of the season, but he's surprised us before. I'm optimistic he can be solid to above average in 2022. All right, it's time for 10 tips for YouTube success. People email me and message me all the time on Twitter to ask for suggestions on how they can get started with YouTube, what type of content they should create, how they should grow their channels. And look, I don't claim to be some kind of a YouTube mogul. Tip number 1, do what you know. I watched nearly every Yankees game for about 30 years, and I've been playing baseball for nearly as long, if not longer, so I know baseball. More specifically, I know the Yankees. I don't know much else, but I can talk to anyone in the world about the Yankees and not feel overmatched. Make your channel about what you know. Not everyone is comfortable on camera, and that's fine. You don't have to be on camera. You don't even have to speak. You don't even need a bunch of fancy equipment. All you need is an idea for something that people who share your interests would like to see. And a mobile phone, maybe some video editing software would both help. If you love nature and you just want to share nature, you can make videos of you walking through nature, sitting by a fire. Or you can build stuff and never say a word. Or bake pies and just film the pie. Whatever you love to do, whatever interests you, I promise there are people out there that share that interest. It may not be a huge audience, you may not get famous or rich, but that shouldn't be your motivation anyway. It should be sharing the things that you enjoy and that you know with the world. I would suggest that you're able to write a little bit, because no matter what type of video you produce, it's good to outline it first, and it's good to have an idea of compositionally how it will come out when it's done, and it's good to write all that down. Tip number 2 is to try and constantly improve. When I began this channel, I began it with an objective to operate at the boundaries of my technical capabilities. That means that I try and make the best video that I can every single time that I sit down to make a video. If it's a live stream after a game, and if I mess up, it bothers me the whole next day. So I try to get things as near perfect as possible, and that's always a good practice, with the understanding that there's going to be times when my microphone doesn't turn on, or the internet cuts out, or I call Gleyber Torres Gary Sanchez. Mistakes happen. Things like that. Don't beat yourself up about it, but try and get better every time. Try and practice, not until you're really good at it, but until you can't get it wrong. Learn to spot the areas that you're not strong and turn those into strengths. Turn your attention to improving in those areas, and when you improve on them, it'll improve the overall quality of your channel. Tip number 3, expand the boundaries of your art form. Penn Jillette, the famous magician, tells a great story when he's asked why he got into magic. You can find it online in most of his interviews. He tells it all the time, but the summary is that he always wanted to be Bob Dylan, and he realized after years of doing his own music that he couldn't out-Dylan Bob Dylan. You don't want to be right in the pocket of what's currently popular. You don't want to do exactly what other people are doing. You want to push the art form in new ways. I've tried to bring a production level to my post-game live streams that nobody else really does. And on my pre-produced videos, I try and operate right at the boundaries of my current capabilities. There are other people who do it better, but I'm doing it as best as I can. I don't want to get comfortable. I want to keep pushing the art form. But this approach has gotten the channel to where the algorithm likes me. So as long as the Yankees YouTube algorithm likes me and continues to grow, then the channel will continue to grow. I see a lot of people try and start highlights channels for the Yankees, and it's like, why? Dan Rourke already had that idea years ago, and he developed it, and he worked hard at it, and he was really consistent and reliable. And now he's the premier place to go for highlights after every game. John Boy does the breakdowns on a level that nobody else on YouTube can do. And the Talkin' Yanks podcast is the best two-man podcast there is. So I had to find a lane. The lane that I chose was to do a solo podcast. I try and keep my post-game shows about 30 minutes. I don't think you need 3-4 hours to do a podcast. I try and keep everything packed densely and entertaining. That ensures that people have a good experience. Not everyone, but most people will. Try and think about the art form that you're doing and try and push it in new directions. One skill that it is really good to have is Photoshop for thumbnails. One of the keys to getting people to subscribe to your channel and to watch your videos repeatedly is to have a thumbnail that makes them want to click it and that's recognizable so that they can come back. You might notice I have that kind of scoreboard look on my thumbnail, and it changes periodically, slightly from year to year, and I'm always trying to improve it. There's a lot of services out there that will design your thumbnails for you, and those are fine if you want thumbnails to look like everybody else's thumbnails. But visualize in your mind, or maybe even draw on a piece of paper, what you want your thumbnails to look like, all of them. And then develop a repeatable design that you can pound out quickly. And then learn how to do those things in Photoshop really fast, and that'll help you become good at making thumbnails. Tip number 5 is study the practices of other content creators that you enjoy. It's not all innovation. You need some kind of a foundation or best practices. I know that I take a lot of ideas and notes from my favorite channels and podcasts. One of my favorites is called Answers with Joe. He talks a lot about interesting topics, mostly science related. It's a solo podcast. Each video starts with a funny intro. I did that for the now retired video series Yankees Game Day, which has transformed into Yankees Game Night and will come on after each game. Even his intro is catchy, and I modeled the original NYY Recaps intro off of that. Doing a solo podcast is not easy. It takes a lot of practice. I take a lot of notes from Bill Burr, who does the Monday morning podcast. I know he's not afraid to go into a personal anecdote or to tell a story during the middle of a sports segment. And a lot of his off-the-phone microphone yells, "Ladies!" I do that type of stuff sometimes, too. I take a lot of stuff from other artists that I like. This is an art form, and you should be able to borrow things and make them your own. Number 6, intros add credibility, but they can also be annoying. One question I get a lot is how to create intros. And honestly, an intro is a good way to let people know that they're about to watch a video that you put some effort into. I'll show you the updated intro for Yankees Game Night in just a second. I'm really excited for you guys to see this. It's a Marvel Cinemas homage. The truth is that you don't want your intro to be too complex or too long because people will turn it off in a hurry. But if you have a short intro that lends credibility, it might get people to give your video a chance. Also, if you don't have a lot of video creation skills, you can just go to Fiverr.com, Fiverr.com, and type in the words YouTube intro, and you can hire somebody for like $5 or $10 to make you an effective intro. Collaboration is important, especially in a field like sports talk. It's easy to see other content creators as your competitors. And, you know, so-and-so is getting more views, or so-and-so is interviewing a person that I want to interview, or getting these sponsors and those sponsors. Don't get caught up in all that. Other content creators are your colleagues. It's not like when Blockbuster Video and Hollywood Video are competing for someone's dollars to rent the newest copy of Paranormal Activity. YouTube videos are free. All you have to do is get the algorithm to like you and to get people coming back to watch your videos. By collaborating with other people on the same topic, you build opportunities for future content, you can expand your audience, and you can create more traffic for your topic. Look at it this way. The more people who are watching Yankees videos, the more YouTube will suggest other Yankees videos to those people. I consider myself to be in competition with the Google algorithm. I want people to find NYY Recaps no matter what Yankees topic they're searching for. And if they just search Yankees, odds are they're going to have an opportunity to click one of my videos. It might not be the first one they click. I don't care. Eventually, they're going to click one, and if I'm putting out quality content, then hopefully they'll come back. And that's where having a good thumbnail comes in. You want them to click, but you want them to recognize that thumbnail as a style of video that they liked, and to have a positive reaction, maybe even subconsciously, that, hey, clicking this is going to give me a good experience. There's an old phrase, there's no elevator to success. You have to take the stairs. It's fun to go back and watch older videos from major content creators because you see that they didn't always start off being very good. It takes practice, and it takes a lot of mental energy, which means that you have to take care of your brain. You have to treat yourself well. You have to build the stamina to create the type of consistent content that will keep people coming back. It takes a long time. You have to make a lot of videos. So that's what this is about. Put in the hours, put in the work. Number 9, know what your end goal is. Have an end goal. Have an idea of why you're putting videos out there. Now, if you're just putting videos out because you like making videos, that's awesome. But a lot of people have a goal. They want to build passive income, or they want to have a side job, or they want to quit their main job and make YouTube a full-time thing. Know what your goal is, and that'll help you achieve it. And number 10, don't be lazy. I feel guilty when I sit down and watch 2 or 3 episodes of a TV show because I feel like that's time that I could have spent getting better at this. Sacrifice time now to get better and put the work in. The great part about TV shows is they won't change if you watch them now or in 5 years. When you're relaxing all day because you're making so much money from YouTube, that's a good time to watch all the shows and stuff that you haven't had a chance to binge. So those are my tips. You know, put in the work, be creative, and you don't need a bunch of fancy equipment. You don't need to be a master video editor. You just have to have an original, fun idea. All right, so let's get started with a podcast room tour for 2022. I've been working behind the scenes to kind of update this room and make it really functional for 2022. I'm trying to set it up so that I can have more watch parties from the main room. I've added some sound panels and I've got some cameras set up so that you can get the backdrop. I've got a really big Funko collection. I've been getting really into Funko Pops over the last few years, and people keep giving them to me for gifts and things like that, so figured why not just lean into it. I've got a lot of them now. And this is kind of my comfortable little cozy area to watch games. I like surrounding it with lots of movie art. I'm really big on art. When I was a kid, we would go to the Poughkeepsie Galleria Mall. I would walk down to where the movie theater was just to look at the movie art. I'm getting more into collecting like figurines and things like that. Quick look at some of the art. Obviously, Dusk Till Dawn, great vampire movie. Field of Dreams, Jurassic Park, classic cover. Pulp Fiction, The Exorcist, just creepy. Rocky IV, I Must Break You. Groundhog Day, got that coming up. The Burbs, underrated Tom Hanks movie. The Jaws 2 artwork, the author for that just died, the artist rather. Got some Simpsons stuff, got a lot of McFarlane's, a lot of Jaws memorabilia. This is my station for my Oculus and my technology, headphones, things like that. PlayStation 5. I haven't really been playing many video games lately, but I have been enjoying some retro mode of MLB The Show. Played through a whole season. This is the podcast area. This is the backdrop that you see when I'm doing a live stream. Good look at some of the art. You can't always see all of it in the background because it's kind of far away. I just got some stills from some of my favorite movies. Got a Jason mask down there. Old book about baseball. Basket full of official league cheap rubberized baseballs that you would never want to use in a game, but they make a good decoration. I'm a big fan of Jaws, so this is kind of like my Jaws area. Got some Jaws Funkos. Everything is lit from below with LEDs. I'm a big collector of physical media. And that's like my art station, all the pens, pencils. And this is kind of where I do most of my recording. You can see I've got a number of screens set up. I've got an iMac, I've got a MacBook Pro, and I kind of link them all with multiple monitors so that I can work on a lot of things simultaneously. If you're familiar with doing videos, you know it can take a while to publish things, and so while something's publishing, I move over to another computer and I work on the thumbnail or work on the outline for the next video, things like that. That is my dog, Cece. She's a cutie. She loves sitting there by that electric heater. And this is Pepper. She is also quite adorable. And then behind is Joba. He is horrible. He is a horrible cat. This is kind of a new background curtain that I got to separate things, so you won't have to look at my TV next year. And yeah, that was the podcast room tour. Let me know if you enjoyed this podcast. I plan on doing more live streams as we approach the season. And then once the season starts, I've got some really exciting things planned for Yankees game night after each game, things that nobody has come up with yet, that I've been working really hard on. So I'm really, really excited to give you guys a great season of Yankees baseball. Let's hope that the team is looking a little bit better by then, cross our fingers. Let's hope that baseball has a season.